The film begins with a sinister narration, telling us to fear the night, for it is a place filled with blasphemies, and a refuge for terrible creatures, also beyond the reach of God's light. The night hides wicked demons, evil witches, and dark stories. Next, we meet Catalin, a young woman who lives with her husband Pelo in a medieval village. She lives trapped in a routine of fear and submission, so she decides to run away from home. Before that, she mixes herbs and mushrooms into her husband's food. While preparing the meal, Catalin hears someone arguing in the darkness of the forest, but the moment is interrupted by Pelo's arrival. She asks if he heard it too, but the man ignores her and orders her to serve the meal. Even during dinner, he keeps complaining about everything, while Catalin simply waits for the right moment. In the middle of the conversation, Pelo comments that things are finally improving and that he will travel for business the following morning. Catalin barely pays attention, and the man soon notices her distant behavior. When he realizes she has not touched the food, he demands that she eat something. With no choice, Catalin tastes the soup, while her husband heads to the bedroom. As soon as he leaves, she runs outside and vomits everything she consumed. However, when she stares at the forest, she feels a strange chill and quickly returns inside the house. Determined to escape, she begins packing her things, but she is suddenly caught by Pelo, who grabs her from behind and tries to force himself on her. Catalin reacts and strikes him in the face, making the man step away for a moment. Shortly afterward, he tries to approach her again to apologize, but the blood running from his nose starts staining the shirt he intended to wear on the trip. Irritated, he orders Catalin to wash the clothes. At that moment, Pelo begins feeling sick and realizes she put something in his food. Taking advantage of her husband's weakness, Catalin flees the house and runs toward the forest. A narration then begins, telling us not to be frightened because that was only part of the story. The voice speaks about a creature from the shadows called Goeko, the very embodiment of the night. According to the legend, those who dare cross the darkness end up lost forever, swallowed by the night. Meanwhile, Catalin pauses to change clothes. As soon as she finishes, she senses a presence in front of her and tries to return the way she came. However, when she looks at the road, she notices a strange figure standing in the middle of the darkness. Thinking it is her husband, she calls out to him, but soon realizes that thing is not human. Overcome with fear, Catalin runs through the forest. In shock, she hides behind a tree while the creature begins taking increasingly grotesque forms. The entity continues transforming before her eyes and claims that the night belongs to nocturnal beings. During the desperate escape, Catalin slips and falls to the ground. The creature then slowly approaches, now transformed into a gigantic wolf. With no chance of escape, she is devoured by the entity while her screams echo through the dark forest. Suddenly, two women appear to help her and begin asking who she is. Still in shock after what she just witnessed, Catalin can barely answer. The women then call a third woman, who appears and calms the situation. Recognizing Catalin from church, she decides to help her, but continues questioning why she is alone in the middle of the night. Still frightened, Catalin explains that she left home when something began following her through the forest. The woman tries to reassure her, saying she is safe, but warns that it is not safe to walk alone in that place at night. Next, Catalin claims she only came to wash her husband's shirt. One of the women distrusts the story, while another searches through her belongings and finds the blood-stained shirt, saying she can help clean it. While watching the women washing the clothes, Catalin asks who they are and what they are doing alone in that forest. The woman introduces herself as Graciana and also introduces her friends, Beltra and Reem. Graciana then reveals that they are not there just to wash clothes, that is merely an excuse to gather far from the control of men. According to them, the situation is getting worse and worse, since any attitude can be seen as a sign of witchcraft by parish priests and justice officials. In the middle of the conversation, Beltra comments that they love exchanging gossip and telling horror stories. Graciana reveals that she was telling one before Catalin arrived and asks her to share one as well. However, not knowing any stories, Catalin refuses, until Rima decides to offer one herself. Rime says that what she is about to tell is not just a simple story, but something that truly happened to a villager. According to her, Eugenia revealed all the details of the event. Rumors claimed that a witch had cast a curse on the young woman, summoning an ancient demon, known as Inguma, a dark spirit born from sin and envy. The scene then cuts to a flashback from 1 month earlier, showing Maria's family beside Father Mateo. Desperate and not knowing what to do, they ask for help to free the girl from the entity. Mateo begins a prayer, but Maria starts reacting in a disturbing manner. Shortly afterward, marks appear on her neck, causing the priest to interrupt the ritual in fear. Convinced that it is the work of witchcraft, he claims the girl has been to hell. Meanwhile, in a nearby chicken coop, a witch appears reciting strange words while piercing the head of a rooster. At the same time, Catalin arrives at the place with her husband and spots the mysterious figure. She approaches calling for Eugenia, but when she opens the gate, only a cat runs out of the chicken coop. Intrigued, Catalin checks the place and finds the dead rooster on the floor. However, before she can understand what happened, her husband rushes her back to Maria. On the way, Catalin encounters Father Mateo and takes the opportunity to ask about Maria's condition. The priest replies that the girl is in God's hands, but coldly comments that she may also be in the devil's claws. Continuing to the house, Catalin finds the young woman's mother in tears and tries to comfort her. Soon after, Antony leaves to gather some herbs, leaving Catalin taking care of Maria. Maria becomes happy to see Catalin and receives a bouquet of flowers from her hands. While the two talk, Father Mateo meets her husband and greets him. However, when preparing to leave, he notices the witch watching everything from a distance and feels a terrible chill. Pelo finds the woman's presence strange and asks if she had not been banished from the village, leaving Mateo even more disturbed when he confirms that she had. At the same time, Catalin hears Maria's family arguing outside and begins worrying. However, her attention quickly turns back to the girl when she starts violently convulsing in bed. Now possessed, Maria begins speaking hateful words against Catalin and orders her to leave immediately. The family storms into the room while the girl continues screaming for Catalin to get out. Later, Antony's mother asks the boy to go to Eugenia's house in search of help. She explains that the woman will know what to do, but warns him not to be seen speaking with her. Antony then heads to the witch's house, where she is already waiting for him, and tells him to come in. Eugenia reveals that she knows a demon is tormenting his sister and asks who was the last person taken by death in his family. Antony answers that it was his grandfather, Inguma. The witch then asks whether he held any hatred toward his granddaughter, but the boy says no, since Maria had always been a good person. Next, Eugenia explains the ritual he must perform. She instructs Antony to wrap a candle around his grandfather's honor statue and, after lighting it, cover it with a bowl until the right time. According to her, when the candle shines again, the spirit will be caught by surprise. Soon afterward, the witch tells the boy to pierce a rooster's heart with pins and scatter some rotten corn kernels across the floor. Before he leaves, Eugenia warns him to repeat that he does not fear Inguma and that Gao is by his side. Later, Antony and his mother enter Maria's room, where she is already extremely weakened in bed. Following Eugenia's instructions, they allow the candlelight to shine again, revealing a humanoid creature crouched over the girl. Overcome with fear, Antony calls the entity by his grandfather's name, making the creature react with violent insults. The being claims that the boy allowed his sister to stain the family's name. Next, the thing tries to kill Maria, but Antony pierces the rooster's heart, drawing a horrifying scream from the creature. Furious, it calls the boy an idiot and asks whether he even knows what Maria did. Antony then scatters the rotten kernels across the floor, temporarily distracting the monster, before beginning to recite the words taught by the witch. The creature turns its attention toward him, leaving both of them paralyzed with fear. When they look again, they realize the entity has disappeared. However, the relief is short-lived because they find Maria dead, with her neck broken. Meanwhile, the creature is seen scratching the earth until it notices the sunrise. Quickly, it is consumed by the light and turns into dust. Shortly afterward, Father Mateo arrives at the place, finds the objects used in the ritual, and confirms the young woman's death. Back in the present, Reme finishes the story and questions what Maria could have done to awaken her grandfather's hatred. Catalin defends her friend, claiming that she did nothing wrong, she was simply very ill, and that the remedies given by the witch only worsened her condition. Reem then asks whether she is accusing Eugenia of being a witch. Beltra also intervenes, saying they know her well and defending her, claiming she always helped the villagers, even after being accused of witchcraft and expelled by the very village she tried to save. The women ask where Catalin heard that, and she replies that it was from Father Mateo, which leaves the group outraged, saying that he only spreads discord among the villagers. In a sad tone, Catalin comments that it has already been a week since anyone heard anything about him. Beltra then approaches and says she knows what really happened, claiming that it is her turn to tell a story. She describes the priest as arrogant and hypocritical, and in a flashback reveals that he disappeared shortly after Maria's death. During the funeral mass, his attention is diverted when he sees Eugenia nearby. He believes he sees her transform into a vulture and fly away, interpreting it as an affront to God. Beltra narrates that Mateo was obsessed with hunting, and that everyone in the village knew it, especially her, since she had once worked at the church, serving him and helping with parish duties. According to her, he was an extremely discreet person who spoke little except about his obsessions, and he also considered himself someone special, almost superior to others. On a certain day, while leaving to hunt, he heard voices coming from a corner of the forest and decided to approach, finding Maria and Catalin. Upon realizing that the two maintained a relationship, he became deeply horrified. Catalin vents about the difficulties in her marriage, and Maria invites her to run away together. Catalin hesitates, saying that no one would accept it, but Maria suggests that they disguise themselves as men and hands her a mushroom. We discover that everything had been planned by Maria, but her death ended up ruining the plans of the two women. The two end up becoming intimate, while the furious priest watches them. He prepares to shoot them, but is interrupted when he notices a hare with an eye similar to Eugenia's. Intrigued, he shoots at the animal, and the sound of the gunshots reveals his presence. The women realize they are being watched and quickly flee the place. Seeing the creature escape still alive, Father Mateo approaches the place and finds blood trails, unable to understand what he just witnessed. At another moment, he speaks with God, questioning whether what he saw was real. Later, he calls Pelo for a conversation, and the man initially believes it concerns work. However, Mateo reveals that the matter is different and asks him and his wife to accompany him to another city, explaining that he needs their testimony to convince the judge that Eugenia is a witch. Pelo refuses, saying he prefers not to get involved. Mateo then insists, quietly stating that the church knows how to reward its faithful followers, and suggests that he cannot say the same about Catalin, revealing what he saw earlier. Later, the priest holds a mass to speak about witchcraft, claiming that no type of sorcery will be permitted and that the punishment will be death. Mateo explains that the Inquisition commissioner will be with them, and if they suspect anyone, they should go to him and denounce the person for witchcraft. He also states that those who shelter witches will be considered accomplices and punished. At that moment, the hare from before reappears. At first, everyone looks toward the open door, but they see nothing. Mateo becomes completely disturbed, grabs his weapon, and shoots at the hare. Everyone begins running in fear while the priest keeps firing at the creature. After everyone leaves, he sees the hare entering a portal into a completely dark world. Next, he calls his dog and orders it to chase the creature, and the animal crosses through the church door. However, Mateo never appears again, and everyone notices his disappearance. Beltra narrates that he was never seen again, but there are rumors that during the night, his whistles can still be heard. She concludes by saying that the priest is now a lost soul, wandering aimlessly. In the present, Catalin claims that is not true and questions how Beltra knows all of that. She replies that the priest himself told her before disappearing. Riemann interrupts her, telling her to stop pretending, because they all already know what she did. Catalin tries to justify herself, saying that the priest promised to keep everything secret, but that she needed to sign a document to testify against Eugenia. Furious, the women confront her, asking whether she signed willingly. In tears, Catalin tries to deny it, but Beltra again states that she knows what Catalin did to Maria, and that because of her, Eugenia was burned alive, suffering indescribably. Catalin tries to defend herself, but the women say that she owes explanations to the witches. Confused, she asks what they are talking about and calls them crazy old women. At that moment, several other witches and warlocks reveal themselves, and Beltra states that she will be taken to the coven. Terrified, Catalin runs back to her house and begs Pelo to let her in. He tries to attack her, accusing her of trying to poison him, but then he sees the silhouettes of the witches pursuing her, and they attack him. Part of Catalin's hair is ripped out, and she tries to flee inside the house. Pelo pushes her outside and quickly shuts the door, leaving her outside in despair. Beltra orders her to admit what she did, and on her knees, Catalin finally confesses her crime. Catalin admits that she denounced Eugenia, but that she was afraid of the consequences and says she regrets what she did. The witches then ask whether she saw where Eugenia was, which makes her remember what happened. Catalin recalls being taken to the official's room, where she was forced to sign the document. She also sees several torture instruments and Eugenia tied to a rope. Faced with the scene, Catalin bursts into tears, but Eugenia says that it is not her fault. Graciana states that they believe her, but that Catalin still carries guilt for the woman's death. She says that Ackerbelts will decide her punishment and orders her to stand up. Graciana then hands her a flask, asking her to rub the liquid on her body and then recite a few words. Suddenly, Graciana and the other witches begin levitating, something witnessed by Pelo. After they leave, he grabs the flask and rubs the liquid on his body, repeating the words. Immediately, he is dragged by an invisible force, smashing his head against a rock before being carried above the clouds, where he finds the other witches. There, he sees Catalin and begs for help, but she rejects him, causing him to fall toward the ground. The witches and warlocks then gather around a bonfire in a celebratory atmosphere. Next, they surround Catalin, remove her clothes, and place her before the fire. Everyone kneels and begins worshiping a demonic creature that appears at the place. Catalin watches in terror while the entity provokes a state of collective ecstasy among those present. The creature then approaches, touches her face, and pronounces her name. Next, it reveals itself as Maria. Upon seeing her, Catalin becomes extremely happy, runs to embrace her, and the two share an intimate moment. Thus, the film ends.